Present.
Commissioner Taylor,
Present.
Commissioner Crowley,
Present.
and Commissioner Skidmore.
And present.
I'd like to welcome everyone here in the audience as well as everyone watching or listening at home. We'll begin the meeting today with the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the invocation by Pastor Dakota Smith with Ottawa Bible Church.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for letting me join you today. On my heart today was just two verses in Philippians chapter 4. Paul writes this to a group of Christians in Philippi, I guess you could say modern day Turkey. In verse 6, he says, "Be anxious for nothing, but in everything, by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God." And then he says this, which kind of catches me off guard. Verse 7, "And if you do this, the peace of God, which surpasses or literally goes over all comprehension, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." And that word for guard in the ancient literature literally means like will create a fortress. It's a military term, a fortress around your mind. And I don't know about you, but as a father, I kind of get out of whack with emotions. We were just coming back from the 4th of July holiday, stuck in a van together, driving back from Arkansas, and you can only imagine the tension in the car. And I said, "Lord, I just need to be thankful. I'm not going to get these moments back with my kids." And then we went around and started finding things we were thankful for, and suddenly the atmosphere in the car changed. I just encourage you to consider today's words and allow him to give you a mind of peace. So let's pray and pray for the meeting. Father, thank you for today, for all who serve here. Just look around the room, the faces and those in positions and those who work hard for our community, those who do much behind the scenes work that we may never know the full extent of. I just thank you so much that you love them. You can give them a peace that goes beyond their understanding, and you can continue to equip them and fortify them as they go about their daily pursuits. Thank you for Ottawa. Thank you for this city. Thank you for those who live in it. We pray for her that, Lord, you continue to give your blessing here. We love you. Pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
We'll go on to public comments. Do we have any registered? We have no items for item 7. We'll move on to item 8, the consent agenda, which includes minutes from the July 2nd, 2025 regular meeting, minutes from the June 11th, 2025 Planning Commission meeting, receive and file vehicle purchase from the electric distribution dump truck, and the agenda approval. Do we have a motion?
So moved. I'll second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. At this time, I'd like to give the commissioners a chance to declare any conflict or communication they've had that might influence their ability to consider today's issues impartially. Seeing and hearing none, we will skip over unfinished business with nothing under that column, and we'll move on to item 11A.
Review of the 2026 operating budget, funds impacting mill rate.
The proposed 2026 operating budget for funds impacting the city's mill rate will be presented for discussion, and we have Director Landis presenting.
Thank you. This is the point in our budget conversations where we reach the mill rate impact funds, those that directly have an impact on how those ad valorem taxes and that total amount becomes part of our revenue calculation in each one of those funds, and then becomes the certified ad valorem that we send to the county at the end of the process. As a reminder, this is where the assessed valuation comes into play in all of our calculations. And then also our goal when we get to the end of this discussion, which really will carry over to next week as well, is that we will come up with a total amount of ad valorem taxes that it takes to support these 4 mill rate funds. And then the county will eventually in October, when they have the actual final valuation, will establish the real mill rate. But for right now, we have an estimated mill rate for each of these. we calculated that and put some of that reference material in the memo that we've put in the packet. But we're not gonna get through all of the information today. We broke it up into a couple of different conversations with you just so that we had time to get through all of it in a reasonable amount of time. And so we will circle back to the same information again next week also. So if we don't get everything answered today, I think that's okay. As a reminder, everything that we've done during our budget process is really put together based around these strategic goals and these pillars that we've talked about multiple times. We started the conversation last year. You've discussed it as a commission, and we presented some of these to you as we presented the capital improvement program and how some of those projects tied to it. And then also we kept all of those in mind as we were preparing each one of the line item budgets or the fund budgets that we've presented to you so far. This is just a trend to show you how the assessed valuation has moved over the last several years, 10 years. And I want to note, so for the 2025 valuation, we receive it now. That's an estimated valuation. Like I mentioned, we won't get the final valuation until October. That is after we have certified our ad valorem to the county. So it could change slightly. This is only an estimate, and that's the yellow pillar that you see there. That valuation is 7.42% higher than last year. So the total valuation this year is 156 million roughly. Last year's valuation was 146 million roughly. When you break those numbers down, it becomes each mill for the 26 budget is equal to $156,862. So that's how the calculation works for number of tax dollars that are related to each of those mills that are assigned to each one of the funds. I also, kind of want to note here that the increase, while you see the valuation increasing, of course, it is an increase year over year, the amount by which it's increasing is declining. So if you notice that in 2022, our valuation went up 10.67%, but then it has started to come back down since then. So 9.9 and then 8.4, and now we're at 7.42. The impact of that for us is that the value of each one of those mills doesn't increase by as much year over year. And the other side of that is that it does represent on average the increase in appraised value that your citizens have seen both on the residential and commercial side. So we have to note that not every homeowner noticed exactly a 7.42% increase in their valuation. They might have received a higher percentage increase or lower, but across the city on average for all residential and commercial, that's the percentage change over last year. Do you have any questions about assessed valuation? Okay. Oops. So what was provided to you in the memo and really will be most of our discussion next week is the proposed mill rate. And this just gives a history of our mill rate trend. And this is just for the city of Ottawa. Remember that the mill rate that you receive on your tax bill every year is not just the city of Ottawa. It is the county, the school district, the recreation commission. There's a lot of parts and pieces that are part of that. And we'll talk more about that holistic view of that when we get more towards the public hearing side of our process. But for right now, we wanted to share with you that what we're putting in front of you is a level mill rate over 2025. And while they fluctuate just slightly between the funds, the total itself is equal to last year. There's a breakdown on the right in the graph there just to show you the difference between city services, which is in the blue, and the library mill rate, which is in the orange. And our next fund that we're going to look at is the library. So we'll let Director Chartier talk to you about what their budget looks like, and you can hear from her about that. With that, just some highlights, and I'll ask her to come up and go through her budget with you. The city does act as a conduit. We receive the ad valorem for the library. So whatever we certified as part of the city's mill rate that's certified, we receive the ad valorem and the motor vehicle taxes, and we turn around and distribute that back to the library. during that budget year. Their charter ordinance does allow for up to 10 mills for the library operations, and their board does determine their annual budget. The library mill rate is reflected in our total, but the city commission does not actually have the authority to change the library budget. And so I'm gonna move on to the actual detailed budget, but I just wanted to show you that based on the calculations in the state budget form itself, that this is a level budget, that a level mill rate that they have proposed here. It's not a level amount of ad valorem, as you can see that, you know, it does increase, the expenditures increase and the ad valorem tax increases. That will be true of all of the funds with a level mill rate. The RNR for this fund as calculated right now would be 8.488. However, we do want to have more discussion about that at next week's meeting. So really not highly focused on RNR today. And with that, I will ask Director Chartier to come and talk about revenues and expenses.
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Commissioners. You would have received my memorandum to City Manager Brian Silcott and all of you. And that memorandum goes over some of the highlights of what we have to look at when we put our budget together. Some of our budget priorities is to make sure we're being good stewards of taxpayer funds. We've been a partner with the City of Ottawa for 153 years, since 1872. We also have to meet several other requirements as we're putting the budget together. We have to pass one of 2 state test requirements to receive funds from the state and from Nichols. With this budget that's presented, we passed both of those state tests. Nichols primary budget requirements for accreditation. We are a major service center 2 library. With that, we have to have 12% of our expenditures on materials. We have to have a minimum of 65% on employees' wages and benefits. The City of Ottawa, as already discussed, our mill limit is 10. We are presented an even mill at 8.589. And we're committed to excellent staffing. I also want to point out that in my position, when I took over this position in 2011, I kept my old position as business manager and also became director. So I'm doing both of those positions still to this day. We have a capital improvement fund. That capital improvement fund cannot have tax dollars put into it. It is strictly donations and fundraising that goes into that fund. I'm sorry, that was the endowment fund that I was talking about. Capital improvement fund can have 10% of tax funds put into it each year. It does have donations and memorials that go into it. We also have some real estate lease income that goes into that. We pay real estate taxes out of that. And that includes the property at 204 South Walnut Street this year. The property at 228 West 15th Street is included in that. We hope to close on that property this month. So that is good news to get that off of our responsibility and move on with the Walnut Street property. The endowment fund this past year also had $238,000 deposited into it. We were awarded 70/30 tax credits in that amount from the state. And we actually sold all those tax credits, and we were very happy to get that process done and excited that we got approved for those tax credits. The Friends of the Ottawa Library was established in 1973. They're a 501c3 organization, and they totally fund our summer reading program with their book sales. They have taken the Franklin County Literature Fest under their umbrella. With that, several staff members serve on the committee to make sure that happens every year. And they do have a bookstore that's opened every Monday from 1 to 2:30, and the first and third Saturday from 9 a.m. to noon. And they used to have a skunk run book sale instead of having their own bookstore. Last year, we actually started the skunk run book sale up again, and we plan to do it again this year in August. And we will have that book sale at the Walnut Street location. last year we had a little bit of a downpour of rain when we got all the books out, so we're gonna avoid that this year. Also want to point out that we do not own any cars. We don't do any phone reimbursements. Haven't done any crazy big raises over the last year. Our ratio of what we get in tax dollars to the value is for every $1, there's a $4 value that goes back to our community at a minimum. Our ad valorem budget represents 19.23% of the entire ad valorem budget and 2.7% of the entire city budget. In the last couple of years, we were asked to decrease our amount that we estimated for delinquent taxes. And in those last 2 years, we have not gotten all that we have asked for. So,
Is
other
that
than
because
that,
it's not been, I mean, it's because it's not been received, right? It's not that
Correct.
we are holding it,
correct.
that, yeah.
Yeah. But that estimate does affect that total. And, other than that, I will answer any questions you have.
I think the real estate tax, is that on here? What do you pay on real estate?
So the real estate taxes actually come out of our capital improvement fund.
Okay.
And we pay real estate taxes on our 15th Street property because we're leasing that property out.
Okay,
So it's still on the tax rolls.
okay, but as far as building on over here on.
We are paying real estate taxes for that too.
And soon on Walnut, I guess, okay.
Could you touch on, what's a major service center to library? I saw that only 3 Nichols libraries are in Carrier. Kind of what does that mean?
So Nichols has different levels for libraries, and they are basic all the way up to a major resource library. The only major resource library in the Nichols, which is Northeast Kansas Library System, is Topeka, Shawnee County. And then Major Service Center 3, Lawrence and Leavenworth fall under that. So we are right under what they do. In order to become a Major Service Center 3 library, we would have to be open more hours and hire more people with master's in library science degrees. So the offset on that does not offset the additional funds we would get from Nichols. So we have never attempted to do a Major Service Center 3. But there is gosh, I don't know how many pages our requirements go through that we have to meet from Nichols. But part of that is that we have to make sure that we have people that, we have to have IT people, we have to have masters in library science people, we have to be open so many days, including evening hours and weekend hours, offering hours at those times. We have to spend so much on materials, which is 12% of our expenses, and so much on employees, and the list goes on.
Yeah.
But several requirements.
Okay, thank you.
Terry, so, thanks for doing this, appreciate it, appreciate what you do for our community, appreciate, yeah, I had a blue card too, the little metal thing, and I went in and barbecue and make a little, it was all good, love the summer reading program, so, can you tell me a little bit about, I see that there's going to be, expenditures in like your equipment reserve and your reserve and cash and carryover and your total budgeted reserve and those things. What are those budget, or what are those totals at right now? And do we,
So,
what lays in those accounts?
right. For our carryover reserve, that's the amount that we need to start the year with. And that covers all of our January expenses. So that includes 2 payrolls and all the expenses that are paid out for the month of January, because we will not get our first check from the city until the end of January. And then the equipment reserve, a lot of our expenses come out of there for any additional equipment that we might have to buy, or any capital improvement that we might need to do. If we have, like one year we had our pipes burst downstairs, and so that helped pay for some of that repair work. Also pays for the expenses that we have for utilities, like right now at Walnut Street, our utilities and, taxes all come out of that. And money that goes into that is not only up to 10% of the tax funds. It can also be fundraising funds that we put in there, lease income. We do have a part of that Walnut Street location that's rented out. And so that money goes in there. And we also charge those individuals part of the utilities that we pay out. Also, the 15th Street property has had income from lease income on the 3 buildings that are on that property and expenses related to taxes. And anytime that one of those properties isn't leased out, we have to pay the utilities out of that.
So then the equipment reserve fund, it's kind of a workhorse fund for you. Then when you sell your building, then will you be replenishing? the
It
sale
will
of that?
actually go into the endowment fund
Okay,
where it will make more money
okay,
for us. Which is where a good portion of the money came out of to pay for that lot.
Okay.
And the same with Walnut Street. Most of the money to pay for that came out of our endowment fund.
so then, changes that you're making and modifications and really making Walnut, the new library hub, that you anticipate using monies out of the equipment reserve
We
to.
do, yeah, because we're using a fundraising firm, and so fees for that fundraising firm also come out of
Okay.
that line item too.
On the grant revenue, you know, I see we're at 80,000, 88,000 for 23, 24, and down in like the mid-50s for kind of 25 and 26. Are there fewer grants available? Is it more competitive to get them, harder to find people to write them?
No, so 23 and 24 show actual grants that we received, so those are additional grants that we received throughout the year. Those grants will be spent either that year or the following year, so what you're seeing in 25 and 26 represents the grant that we're assured we're gonna get from Nichols.
Okay.
And that can be spent on operating. Most other grants are restricted. And so that's why you don't see those as budgeted, because right now we don't
We
know
don't
what
know.
grants we're gonna get
Yeah.
next year.
Well, that makes sense. And on that equipment reserve one, is that what buys I know you guys have like loaner laptops, right? That people can like check out or use and stuff like that,
That could buy that.
Mhm.
Those loaner laptops actually came from a grant that the city applied for in partnership with us and COF, I believe.
okay.
Is that right? Yeah, so we got so many laptops and we were able to actually give those out to some community members. They had to come in and apply for them. And then we kept 10
Mhm.
to check out to patrons.
And are those kind of on like a replacement cycle, like most computers kind of are, or they get
Yeah,
obsolete after
Derek
5,
has
you know,
a
certain
whole,
years?
whole
Yeah,
program of what he replaces as far as those and our public computers.
Okay.
Yeah.
thank you.
Well, thanks for wearing 2 hats. How much are you saving there at the city library with, you doing both?
Quite a bit. When I started in that position, I got 55% of the 2 salaries added together.
Okay. See, I think so. Thank you for that.
Any other questions for Director Chartier?
I'll just reiterate the thank you. I as well, I remember the blue library card with the little metal piece on it from years and years ago. And you have great memories spending time at the library as a kid and all the things you guys offer now that are free. You know, movie nights, all the different things you guys do, I think are a great asset to the community. And I don't read as much as I would like to, but as important as reading is, I think it's still great that we're buying actual books.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
we have an excellent staff that provide amazing services and programs for the community.
I don't take those stamped cards anymore. That'll be
No.
outside by that next week.
Yeah, that's used to.
It was number 23, actually.
Yeah, that's.
Okay. Is there any more
Thank you.
questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
Okay, our next fund is our general obligation debt fund, or more, we often call it our debt service fund, is what you hear it called in all of our reports monthly and sorry, I'm I have not mastered the clicker today. I keep flying past the screen. So I think these are just some of the highlights for our debt service fund, and that we use this fund solely for the payment of our GO bond issuance. And any bond issue, regardless of the revenue stream that's used to pay for it, is paid, principal and interest are budgeted from here and paid from here. And in the revenue side, you'll see the transfers in from those related funds. So we do have some from each of our utilities that come in to help offset the cost of their own infrastructure improvements, those bond issues related to them. In the 26 budget, you'll see that there's a declining balance related to the maturing 2017 A and 2018 B bond issuances that were for the purchase of land and acquisition. Land and construction of the infrastructure at Proximity Park, and then as well as the 2021 B, which supported the cooling tower at the electric plant, and we just put that in place a couple of years ago. And then this is just a side note, so the decisions that we make about refinancing those bond issues, there's quite a bit of analysis that goes into that and whether or not we would actually have a cost savings. So you might have a bond issue that was maybe callable a couple of years ago, but there's very little interest left, and the savings after you've paid for the issuance cost of refinancing any bond issue, you have to make sure that you're actually going to recognize the savings by doing so, or that it's worth having that cost to do that. So there are several bond issues that just pay off within the next couple of years that they might have a little bit higher interest rate than what you could get now by refinancing them, but the cost that goes into it to do that process and the very little interest that we owe between now and then really doesn't offset the or cause a need to do so. This is a breakdown by percentage of each one of the types of expenses within those bond issues and how they're supported by revenues. So out of this, I think one of the important pieces here is that we do have $16 million in debt. Only 16.9% of that is supported by property taxes. Everything else is supported by other funds, and those funds transfer those dollars in annually to offset their principal and interest payment. Like we mentioned, the stormwater, wastewater, special streets, electric, water, and the special sales tax for Proximity Park are all other revenue streams that you see in the transfers part in the detailed budget that's provided for this fund. I think it's important to note that that is a really low percentage overall of your total debt that's being supported by property taxes. And those bond issues are those that primarily don't have another funding source, like the T hangars at the airport or sidewalk construction from several years ago, maybe a street project. Those are the types of projects that use property tax funded payments every year. Everything else has an offset. This, it's a little blurry to read, so I apologize for that, but this is just a full listing, and I believe you see something very similar to this in your monthly or quarterly report that we put out that shows you everything that, we have current bond issues on, and we do produce an annual report, a quarterly report, and then also an annual report for our total debt of the city overall. In some of our previous conversations, we talked about our capacity, our debt capacity, and what that statutory debt limitation is. And so our financial advisor, Dave Arterberry with Stifel, provided a new updated debt book for us, and in it is this graphic. And so I thought maybe I would just take a second to touch on how this calculation works. And so it does use your equalized assessed valuation and your motor vehicle estimates. And then, so really we can come up with this about January 1 every year. We don't get those motor vehicle estimates until June of each year. So it is a little delayed in calculating, but so then if the debt limit is 30% of that total, that calculation. And so our statutory debt limitation currently is $47,675,000. And after you look at the actual bond issuances that are still out there remaining, our total debt right now is the total is the 17 million. If you look in that second table there, the 17 million, there's exemptions for what is used against that calculation. And so largely anything that is for utility infrastructure, those are all exempted from this debt, the statutory debt limit. So all of those are reduced out. So currently, out of that number, that 47 million, we would subtract the 2.9 million. And so roughly our debt capacity right now is 44 million. So we aren't anywhere near that total amount, and we do have that much in our debt capacity. Now, are we looking to fill that? No. There are other factors. So this is just the statutory debt capacity that, our state statute dictates, have to be a calculation. It's something we cannot go above. But then also in every debt issuance that we have, we also engage in a rating. So our rating capacity might be much different. It's based on different calculations. They want to look at our total debt per capita and a bunch of other factors. And so when we're considering new debt, we want to make sure that we're considering all of that. If they look at what you have in reserves, they look at what your total ad valorem taxes, what your assessed valuation is for the entire community, those types of factors. So just wanted to illustrate the difference between what that is and then answer the initial question. Do you have more questions about the debt capacity?
Mm.
No.
So
And if we-
assuming that goes up each year as the valuation goes up, essentially it's based off the assessed valuation of tangible property, kind of
Just slightly.
it would slowly roll up. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you can also, in each one of your payoff schedules for each one of those debt issuances, the annual amount that you pay for principal interest is not always the same.
Mhm.
So it depends on how it was structured. We might have had an inclining fee structure depending on, what we were able to pay at the time versus later. And so each of them are constructed differently. So it might change. Our actual payment might
Mhm.
change each year too. So I would say it probably stays fairly stable.
While we're talking about debt, you know, if the big beautiful bill that we were talking about, or wanting to talk about, did they get the municipal tax exempt on tax, excuse me, on the interest earnings the banks earn on debt, do you know?
I don't believe that was part of it.
Okay, is that was kind of our purpose in going there, not necessarily for that, but we sort of spoke up about that, we were not in favor of that, of course, because that would make our rates go quite a bit higher if the banks were not get exempt on that interest.
Yeah, happy to check into that, just to bring it back as an answer for you too. Yeah. All right, do you have any other questions on the debt service fund? Overall, we're proposing that in the total grand scheme of things, that actual mill rate would go down because our total principal and interest amount goes down. And if we keep the level reserve in there, it still would reflect a slightly smaller mill rate for that fund.
Thanks for this, that's a good chart too, we can see that.
Okay, yes. Okay, so our auditorium fund is another one of our mill rate funds, and we do have Director Evans here to answer any questions that you have about this, but just the general background and highlights for this fund are that the OMA was built in 1918. We opened the doors in 1921. Our operations include all of the live performances, the special programming and private events and educational initiatives. The charter ordinance does allow for a maximum of 2 mills for operations and 1 mill for capital improvements. Currently, the mill rate for the OMA is 1.77. So we aren't, and that's for all operational and capital improvements. So we're far below, even just about half, just over half of the actual allowed mill rate under charter ordinance. The revenue that's generated is from our rental fees, the ticket sales, sponsorships, concessions, merchandise, property taxes, and then also grants. And we have been very fortunate that our team works really hard to go out and get those grant dollars, and they've been successful. And that's fantastic for this fund. Our building maintenance is challenging. Our venues fund balance, which is kind of becoming unsustainable. And so what we're reflecting here to show you is that some of those repair costs and capital improvements have been moved out for the years of 2025 and 2026 to other funds to be able to allow this fund to rebuild its fund balance. So by moving some of those to the general fund and to the capital improvement fund and the equipment reserve fund, moving those associated costs out will allow it to rebuild some of that. do you wanna talk about your budget highlights or do you wanna just add?
I can talk about them. Let's get on that. Okay, so budget highlights. So we are currently, working on the commercial kitchen remodel. We have a grant opportunity to, revitalize that space and make it a space that our whole community can utilize. Again, that's some grant funding. The city clerk and I are working on some additional grant opportunities for that project. The Friends of the OMA are also helping fundraise for that project. We also have proposed adding some live streaming equipment into the auditorium sound booth. Thanks to the remodel of the commission chambers, we were able to borrow or take some old camera systems that we've installed at the auditorium, which will not only help our events. There's a lot of grant opportunities out there for events that are available virtually as well, but it will be beneficial for our community partners who use our space as well. So, and then in 2027, we know that kitchens are expensive, whether they're residential or commercial, and so we know this kitchen space is going to be something that we're building on for years to come. So that's so we're working on that in 27.
Our financial summary here just reflects that by moving some of those expenditures out in 25 and 26, that it does allow that fund balance to come back up slightly. I think that's maybe one of the most important things that this table shows you, other than if you look at those expenditures for the operations of the OMA, they run a really tight budget, really tight on expenditures, and largely anything that you see as a fluctuation was generally unexpected. And so, and that is generally what causes the overage in those expenditures, or what our planned expenditures were for the year. And so they make changes to their operations based on that. And then, it reflects in that ending fund balance. So I believe before we made these changes, we were looking at potentially somewhere around a $10,000 fund balance this year. And so that is what sparked the need to move some of those expenditures out.
Tiffany, could you kind of hit on what goes into charges for service, kind of looking at, almost a declining revenue source in that, what that kind of comes from?
That is a little misleading, if you will, because we offer ticket sales for renters. And so, those charges for services are in there, and then we pay those out. So that's why you see that decline last year. Boy, howdy, we sold so many tickets for our renters, which is awesome for us because we're able to, charge them for that, that service, as well as we have a historic preservation fee that we charge on all the tickets. But it is a little misleading and shows that, we sold a lot more tickets than we did.
And I think you'll see the offset to that in their contractual services. So where there is a revenue, there had to be an expenditure. The change that we're making, and it is somewhat reflected here, but it definitely reflected in 26 and 27. Only partially reflected in 25, is that we're going to take those revenues and expenditures and move them out to a liability account, where as they come in, they can turn around and be paid out without having the need for budget authority. So for example, last year or the year before, where she really ramped up the opportunity for those to manage those ticket sales, we didn't have all of the budget authority that was needed, so we had to make some adjustments within the fund to be able to do that. Even though it was a benefit to us overall, it just challenges your budget authority if those fluctuate or you have an increase, which is a positive thing, but then you end up with a negative impact on your overall bottom line. So we are going to move those out to the liability account, so that's reflected here. This just illustrates the fund balance and what our target fund balance is. And you can see in those last couple of years where actual fund balance was dipping below where we would really want it to be. And then you can see where it'll start to pick up speed, beginning in 26, and hopefully make a return to a good manageable level in the future. Now, with that being said, that assumes that we continue to pay for all of those capital improvements or those unplanned things that happen with the building. And just to give you an example, and maybe Tiffany can talk about this a little bit more, but the, the electrical service, went out last year. We were able to repair it, but the cost of that is $40,000, and on a budget that has a very small overall, reserve in there, that is a difficult expense to be able to manage to cover. And so moving those out for now is fine, but I think we're still gonna have to come back and have more conversation about what do we do in the future years, and how can we make sure that those expenditures are covered, and especially with an older building, and the repairs that are needed as it continues to age.
I've been told that we're not going to need another electric panel, that one is.
On the outside, you're not.
Yeah.
Yeah. on the
Inside, you
outside,
might.
Way to qualify that. Any other questions about our OMA?
I just say compliments to you. I really didn't think you'd be able to get this profitable as quickly, because, 24 looks like a little bit of a loss, but we had the reserve to handle that, of course, but 25 looks like revised, you're gonna make a little bit of money. With it, in my ad here. 456 in that, oops, I didn't see that. I'm showing total revenue for 25 revised at 456,
Is that what's in the packet?
yeah.
It's on page 26, packet page.
Well, those aren't the same numbers at all, are they? Okay, so that 456 reflects the actual revenues without the beginning fund balance.
Right.
The total amount with that included is the 505,270.
Yeah, right, that'd be with cash from the previous
Yes,
year.
so this is a different table up here than what was in the packet, so
Okay,
apologize, those are
But
a little different.
25 looks like it's gonna be profitable, that's what I'm complimenting you for, because I didn't think it'd be profitable that quick. I know it takes a while to get this thing built up. How many years you been in the position?
8.
8, okay, here we go, we're good, so.
Mhm.
Year number 8's your magic year,
Think
but,
about what we saw 8 years ago.
well, yeah, that's right. Yeah, Sarah and I were on there at the same time, thinking, oh my.
And as we say repeatedly, that this is not a cost recovery operation.
Yeah.
But what we attempt to do with this, with the golf course, with the pool, would be to, and obviously we don't operate the pool, that's the rec commission, but municipal pools as a whole, we try and cover the cost of the service.
Yeah.
Wages, the attractions, and where you start to run into difficulties is when you look at those capital costs, the building maintenance. And that was what Director Landis was highlighting as far as trying to offset some of those costs elsewhere as well. So to reflect them in those capital line items, within the general fund and other locations that are actually attributed to that. But from an operational standpoint, they are really accomplishing what they are setting out to do, and showing that they're showing return on their operations to the public.
That's what enabled the competition for the high school, get it in the auditorium, so I'd say you've done it in the home run, so congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next fund we're reviewing is our golf course fund. So our golf course, just to cover some of the highlights, it's 9-hole, and we purchased in 2022, but we assumed the operational management in the beginning of 2025. It is a special revenue fund, and it includes the operational revenues and transfers from other funds, and those support all the operational costs. Many of the startup costs, including the need for a new building to conduct business, and the related revenue and expense adjustments are reflected in the 2025 revised budget. Some of those include the need for the improved course conditions, which these are all goals of ours, and then community engagement, marketing to the existing and potential new patrons of the golf course. And we've had a really great first several months of this year, and the course is looking fantastic. So the golf course operations are planned to be moved to the general fund as a division in a divisional operating cost center in 2027. So if you look at the detail, there are no expenses or revenues indicated in 2027 in the budgeted line items, but those will be reflected in the general fund when we present that to you. We do have our general manager, Milner, and our superintendent Murphy here to be able to answer any questions that you have. Some of our budget highlights here, are difficult to really look at the line items because our 25 adopted budget was a really big estimate. At the time we put that together, we weren't operating the course. We had very, very limited information. And we're using some of the reports that were produced by the previous management company. And so as we've gone into revise, we've used very conservative revenue estimates here, and some of our operational costs are our best estimate as what we can expect for this year. Both of our both Drew and Rob have done a really great job of going through and trying to identify just the minimal needs for the golf course overall. The items that are also mentioned on here are ones that we talked about during the capital improvement process. Those are in the plan. The design for the irrigation pump and system, I want to apologize. The description here is not correct, under that item, and we'll get that fixed, but, that is to eventually replace the pump and the irrigation system to be able to accomplish watering of the entire golf course, whereas right now it's very limited and, repairs are very difficult. The installation of cart paths is in the plan because we intend to apply for grants when those become available again, for parks. And, currently it doesn't have another, revenue stream or source to accomplish that, but we wanted to make sure it was in the plan in case we were able to apply for a grant. And then in our 2027 budget, as we mentioned, we anticipate moving that to the general fund. That's a separate cost center there. The 24 actuals for the golf course are really the expenses that we had leading up to the actual operations. So those were very minimal in nature. Just some things that we needed to do before we actually took over the golf course. So we didn't have any true operational costs in there. The 25 adopted, as I mentioned, is something that we put together when we first decided that we were going to take over management of the course, which was a year in advance of when the lease agreement would have ended with the management company at that time. And our 25 revised is our best estimate as to how we'll end this year. Again, those revenues are very conservative. We didn't want to overshoot that for the bottom line. And again, as we approach later in the year and we approach year end, we'll have a much better estimate of exactly what our summer months, our nicer spring months together combined will produce for this year's revenue. And again, for this fund, similar to our OMA, a lot of those upfront capital costs, because of just starting out with the revenue, weren't able to be covered by the initial revenue. And so those have been moved out to other funds, such as the capital improvement fund, equipment reserve, and some of the maintenance costs to the general fund. And so that's what you see there in the future, or in that line for capital expenditures, is that anticipates that those expenses will be covered in 2026 by those funds as well. Do you have questions about this table? I didn't include a fund balance graph in here because we don't have any history to reflect, and showing it going forward by moving it to the general fund, it wouldn't really be relevant at this point.
I think, go ahead, I'm sorry, Commissioner.
Could you touch on kind of on the personnel services line? You know, I know we were kind of assuming around 300, we've revised to 439, we're looking at 508. Just kind of that jump, was there more staffing necessary, or what does that kind of look like since we really, have taken over with that? I mean, that's a, significant jump from what we kind of proposed to where we're gonna be.
Sure, that's a great question. When I put together this budget, we didn't have a general manager or anyone that knew anything about operating a golf course on staff at the time. So it was our best guess in order to put together the budget then. And then once we were able to bring our general manager on, we were able to put together a little bit better estimate of what it really takes to run the golf course. So we do have 2 full-time on the pro shop side and 2 full-time on the course maintenance side. And then we use seasonals in both of those areas to offset all of the hours. As you might imagine, there are a lot of hours in the day that a golf course is open. And so, we're open from sun up to sundown. So those hours aren't able to be accomplished by just a couple of full-time people, but also using the flexibility of seasonals really helps in that time where you don't necessarily need full-time staff all year long to fill all of those hours. And during those winter months, of course, those hours are shortened some, and being able to use the flexibility of seasonals has really helped and helped keep down the cost. You don't incur those benefit costs as well, capers and such. But I don't know if you guys have the numbers of how many seasonals you have on staff for both the maintenance side and the pro shop side?
I currently have 3 seasonals.
About 10. So.
And I'm assuming, yeah, a lot of that is, obviously insurance goes up as well. It's just kind of.
Yes. Thank you.
It's not straight salaries, that's full package that.
That is the
costs
full
city
package,
with,
yes.
yeah.
Thank you for asking that question. So as you see in some of our independent funds that aren't in the general fund, so even your utility funds, you see all of those additional costs are wrapped in. So you have to offer your health insurance and you have all your payroll taxes and then your other insurance costs related to that, as well as capers. So yes, it's a full benefit package, all the personnel costs wrapped into that one category. Those are not just salaries.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes.
And so do we, I don't know, we get annual fees from some members, we call them members, I guess, or? Okay, so how many do we have in annual membership?
Well, we sold probably about, let's see, around 39, probably.
Okay,
There's different, categories, so one covers a family, one doesn't cover a family, one covers a
Okay.
senior. But we sold about, $80,000,
okay,
in a month and a half of those.
so that's all right. And then there's still some daily people that come.
Absolutely.
What percent?
So right now, we're looking at, we've done about 6,000 rounds, and I'd say about 2,000 of those have been pass holders. So
Okay, so
we still have a pretty good ratio of the average walk-in pay, which is great, because we're not a private golf course, so
Right.
we want to have that option and that availability.
So that's 6,000 rounds year to date.
Right, yeah, 3 o'clock today.
And where,
Tyler added one.
Yeah.
6,000 is the other.
Hopefully more by 5.
Yeah.
and we're over 50%
I guess you can say, okay.
of a projection currently, and that's without the ability to capture the full year estimate, because we obviously couldn't start targeting these until April. So we're seeing a solid response rate.
Well, that's what I wasn't sure. I had several people approach me about doing a monthly like was before with Great Life, and I realized our accounting system's not, it's set up for that right now. So are we losing any business because of that, you think, or people, acquiesce and they're okay, they'll pay daily and.
I don't think we're losing business, no. I think that a lot of people were definitely used to that, like, low fee of, I don't think that's sustainable, and you saw what it brought along.
But the maintenance that was.
So, but I think, there's been people that were like, I can't do this, it's not monthly, and most of them are back.
Okay.
So that's positive. We had a huge group last week of guys that have been playing at a golf course, a little farther away, who came back, and it sounds like they'll be back for quite a bit, of the next year, so it's looking positive.
Well, I'm hearing lots of compliments. I mean, early on, we had some noise, opposing this, but, more and more recently, the improvement of the course, I think, has made a big difference. You guys appreciate all that, making that happen. We're getting a lot of compliments. I can see this probably continuing to climb and membership or participation.
Yeah, I'm about to start a little more aggressive marketing, so I'm hoping this fall we're gonna be really busy.
Yeah. Well, it looks great. I drive by and see their fences. They look good. It's great. So another question on the pump, I guess, for the pond. You can't use all that water, I guess, for irrigation. So we use city water, I guess, to make up any difference on that or?
So the pond we do irrigate out of, but there is, and it's pretty much all runoff rainwater, with the exception of some water that, the utility drains off to kind of keep the stack price be good, the chemical levels on the north side where they need to be, so there's a little bit of water that goes into the pond from the city.
Okay.
But the irrigation system's definitely been a challenge. Now I can But then you head in and dig it up a couple weeks later and the bottom screen's plugged with, algae and just, so it's not an ideal system.
Well, when we look at this expansion, I guess in some of these areas and these improvements, are we looking at leveraging or how are we gonna plan to pay for that? Do we have a plan yet?
So our very first goal was to have someone design the pump in the system to make sure that we know what we're looking at. And then beyond that, being able to come back and say, okay, how could we fund that? We know that a new irrigation system is incredibly expensive. Also incredibly necessary to keep the greens, the entire course looking like a golfer would expect it to be in order to come play at that course. And so I think it's a delicate balance. And as Drew mentioned, that the reason that a lot of those that he has challenges with the heads across the course is, as he mentioned, because it's coming from the pond. The pond is very, very shallow, so it's dragging in a lot of that. If you had a deeper pond and there's a variety of reasons why, but it's just a challenge all the way around. Everything from the water source to the distribution.
Yeah, and if we're looking at wanting to water the whole property, the availability of water is just, there's not enough water there. So something we're gonna have to evaluate moving forward.
That's what I wanted, the cost of dredging that in the deeper, is
We
that?
had that conversation at one point, didn't we, about dredging the?
We did. I think the initial cost estimate was somewhere around 300,000 to dredge that pond. Our crews did go out and get started very, very early in the winter time when we first took it over and began to dig out the pond at least what they could get to. And then we had freezing temperatures and lots of snow and it stopped us. And so I believe that we'll get back to that again in the fall and do what we can on that front. Of course, we won't be able to do all of the work ourselves just because of the needed equipment, but at least on that front, we can do what we can to help.
I think we'll just
Retain.
have to explore all of our options for water sources
And of course, you can sell some golf balls in case you put them in there, right? Get some money back. Or maybe, I don't.
They have some clubs.
Yes. Maybe a golf cart. Yeah. I do just wanna say, that the course is looking great, what we've been able to do, I think we've all seen in lawns over the last 2 weeks, definitely week. We're hitting that summer brown and, it's coming in. And so it's a testament to what water really does for keeping a golf course, because these are the days that if you don't get water on stuff,
Yeah, and we have
we're really in trouble.
most of the manual valves to be able to water at least the blue and white tee boxes again. And so we're definitely using more water than they previously were, so I think they were just watering greens, last few years, so. We're seeing some improvement in the tee areas and the greens, but definitely right now you see the fairways and the rough really starting to check out, but Bermuda's looking great.
Yeah.
Really cool season.
Yeah. And then Rob, kind of on, Mike's point with the annual sales for the pass holders and stuff, do you know what number Great Life was at previous? Or kind of what our target is if we're sitting at?
Is their numbers were all 3 golf courses.
Mhm.
So I couldn't pull out a number and say this part of Ottawa.
Mhm.
And that's what was so challenging about trying to estimate that. They'll tell me at one point in time they had 800 members, and I'm like, at one golf course, at 3 golf courses. And there's just not enough, factual, numbers to back
Yeah.
up like, okay, here and there. So I think that there's a lot more room for potential as far as events, just regular green fees, dollars,
Mhm.
like that 80,000 we sold in passes. That's awesome, but I expect it to see well past that in the green fees and cart fee revenues. So, I mean, I think the sky's the limit here.
Thank you, because I just, to the same point, that was the biggest kind of complaint I've heard so far. It's obviously a change, but going from monthly to kind of the annual was the biggest issue I've heard from folks.
No one has to get a payment.
Yeah.
You can pay, I mean, I mean, there's different options and there's people that are like, oh, this is too expensive. And I was like, I'd love to sit down with you. I'll explain to you the best time to golf for you.
Mhm.
And we can do that, I know that the monthly thing was definitely just kind of just a culture there for a minute, I guess.
Yeah, and I think because speaking of that culturally, there are a lot of golf courses that, you know, it's an annual fee. But I think most people, normal bills, most people are probably used to paying everything monthly. There's not many bills that most folks have, I think, that we pay lump sums on,
Yeah.
except for property taxes and other things like that. And so I was just kind of curious on that number with 39, if we, you know, we're hoping by the end of the year to be in the mid-40s, by next year be in the six, you know, what we're kind of trying to shoot for if we have, or, you know, potentially make more off green
That's
fees.
not bad.
Mhm.
Like, I was scared we'd have 100 people sign up.
Yeah.
And then what? And then are we a private golf course? But, you know, a lot of places I've been in the past, you have to limit it. We're not there yet,
Mhm.
but, could we eventually? For sure, because we have to be available to the public, you know? So, having more daily pass holders is not always a positive.
Tell me about the new clubhouse, and how's that working?
It's working great. No worries of things falling on you or, you know, through the floor. or
The
anything
safety
like that.
concerns, good, well,
Yeah,
excellent.
please,
We
anything.
have a nice little patio out back. There's the Thursday night group and the ladies league sit out and have some cocktails afterwards. Yeah, it's really worked out pretty well.
Do we direct Alanis on kind of plans? I know obviously we'll need to tear down the old pro shop at some point. Do we have something, you know, a plan for what that may look like? Cause obviously a building sitting empty for years could potentially be problematic on kind of what that might look like.
Yeah, great question. So we have kind of a step process that we're beginning. The first step in that is putting in an RFP to have somebody come in and actually go through the building and find out what type of challenges might be there for demolition. And we'll need to include that in any future RFP for demolition of the building. So knowing what's in there for asbestos and any other
Contaminants.
thank you, contaminants that might be there that would be important to getting a really good estimate for demolition and then moving ahead with a recommendation for demolition. I don't know exactly what that timeline is gonna look like, but our very first step would be to have somebody come in and review the building itself. As of right now, it's just closed up.
Thank you. And I just didn't see a line item for the GoPro to live stream and the googly eyes for the mower, cause I watched one on TikTok and I think, I'm saying I think it would do great. I spend way too much watching some guy live stream on a robotic mower and I should, so.
They work great.
Yeah, no, they,
They do.
you know, driving by even late at night, seeing them go is just really cool.
Good move, yeah, save on labor quite a bit. They don't
I love the people who take selfies with them.
Mhm.
Some of the ladies have names.
Oh, no, they totally have. Yeah, they do. I know.
They even know which one's which one.
Yeah.
Any other questions on the golf fund? On budget? No? Okay, well, as we talked about today, these are just, these are 3 of the 4 mill levy funds. The 4th is the general fund, and we want to bring back some more, defined conversation to you on that, and then an overview of what the mill rate looks like overall. Part of that conversation would be some of what we've traditionally in the past talked about early on in the process, which might be new construction values and how it relates to the assessed valuation, and then how those tax abatements and NRP and TIF and all of those work into those calculations as well. And then bringing back to you the most important conversation for next week is really the R&R, and the deadline for responding to the county to let them know if you're going to exceed the R&R is July 20th. So our next meeting is really at the time when you would determine whether you intend to exceed. As a reminder, the recommendation both from the state budget office and anyone that you might ask is to go ahead and proceed with the option to exceed, because you don't have control over that final valuation. And if you choose to not proceed in that manner and the valuation changes in a way that might push you over that, you're responsible for a refund to the taxpayers and all types of penalties that come along with it. So we even in a recent survey for all of the Johnson County cities and the Eastern Kansas area For GFOA, they've all indicated that they were exceeding revenue neutral, at least proceeding through that process. And then they'll make their determination of what their actual mill rate will be later in the process. So, and then the next step after that, beyond that, would be our September 3rd public hearing. And if we need to have more budget conversation about ironing out the details between next week and that public hearing, we can absolutely do that. So, other questions?
I did not at the beginning get to ask, so apologies for that. It's gonna be way back if you're going on slides.
Okay.
I saw in there that there's 392,000 in new construction, and then 3,430,000-ish for property with changed use. Could you kind of define what, that's a
Oh,
pretty substantial number, what that means, changed use, kind of was what those things may be, if that's not
yes.
new construction.
So, when I actually did talk with the county this morning about that, one of the items was that specifically, so new construction would be, somewhere where construction did never exist before. And so the change in property value would be if you had, a lot of our infill housing.
Yeah.
So you're building on a lot where there was a value before. And so that is included in the change in use as opposed to new construction or new improved value. And so as we move towards some of these new housing developments where there hasn't been a development there before, you'll start seeing those numbers, some of those numbers shift over to the actual new improvements. Any other questions? No?
We're good. Thank you. We will move on to comments by our city manager.
Mayor and Commissioners, thank you, and I want to just thank Director Landis, her team, and our directors as well, who have really rolled up their sleeves, as well as when we present these budgets, we particularly in presenting a stable flat mill levy, that decision strikes a balance between kind of that tax rate stability and also the responsibility for accurate and appropriate revenue estimations to go with relatively stable costs, and that we want to try and preserve a consistent tax rate for our neighbors, our property tax owners that we are all part of, and this is viewed at least in the government finance world as being fiscally conservative, protecting the ratepayers plus the organization for the delivery of services by striking that balance. And so we appreciate the diligence that our team has taken to present to you, as well as I know you've asked questions here this afternoon, but you've also asked many questions outside of these meetings of your city team, and we're grateful for that as well. Just a update on the water line on Main Street from 15th to 17th. And this is a slightly different change than what we had presented last week. And that's that, we've got all of our lanes open there at 17th, starting on July 3rd. And now we're projected to remain on schedule for a July 18th completion with that expanded project scope for when we found that adjacent water main that was occluded with some more tide buildup. And you may have noticed that our crews have been out putting things back in perspective. And so they've been out repairing signs and replacing stoplights. And so I'm grateful for that. I think it does give a better appearance to the community as well. And then I want to thank our parks crews as well as our Ottawa Rotary Club for the state of Kansas grant funded picnic tables where we installed 4 new tables and 2 new park benches in Forest Park, and our Ottawa Rotary Club members who assisted in their assembly with our Parks Department team. And it's not too late to sign up for July 17th bingo and for Mitch Holthus, Voice of the Chiefs, or if you're well past your prime, like myself or Commissioner Skidmore, Voice of the Wildcats, Mitch Holthus. Also, we've got some concerts coming up in early August as well. You can get your tickets through the OMA website. And I just want to kind of conclude this by encouraging folks to go to ottawaks.gov/survey. And as of about 2:30 this afternoon, we had 377 responses so far received. And we appreciate that because the decisions and the priorities that you make here, I know these kinds of inputs do provide clarity for what folks view as important. And so for that, we encourage our neighbors to go forward and fill out a survey. And with that, that concludes my report. If there are no questions for myself or the team as we roll into some upcoming agenda items.
Did our sales tax initiative survey go out?
Yes, that's what.
That's what.
Oh, is that
yeah,
what it is?
Yes,
Oh,
it's the
thought-
questions are on there,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, it's 14 questions. The last is, and it's limited to, I think, 250 or 300 characters. But we even have a open response on the as the last question. But we're assessing what their priorities are and also what they would see as a willingness to pay, if you will, for the sales tax for these improvements.
So 3 days? Did it go out Monday?
Pretty good response. That's in interest of I wanted to bring up Second Street. I know the crosswalk as you head west from Haley Park is not working, so I did not know if that was on radar. When it changes, there's no hand signal, there's nothing up there on that pole, so just kind of bring that up as more people are out and about. Yeah.
That crosswalk was, looked at and fixed yesterday.
Oh.
I'm out of date. I was there
Behind.
Now, it's a button at the end main,
Oh,
or that intersection
Oh,
as well.
okay.
So, yes.
So I should have had ice cream last night and I would have noticed that it was fixed. Okay.
Yeah. And I thank our team for being to that.
Great.
So just some upcoming items. We'll have continued general fund and mill levy impact discussion, the R&R discussion, set a public hearing date. We'll also recognize our park superintendent Greg Morrow for completion of his Emerging Leaders Academy through KU's program, and have a resolution for RHID Woodridge Estates area. Reinvestment Housing Incentive District, a certificate of renewal for our KMGA Board of Directors, and a zoning change for some properties that were originally residential, that at some point in the 70s, that whole area was changed to industrial, and now they're going back to the request is to be rezoned as commercial, I'm sorry, residential from this light industrial to put in some multifamily housing. So that concludes my report.
thank you.
Thank you.
We will move on to comments by their governing body. We'll start with Commissioner Crowley,
No comments.
Commissioner Kaler,
No, thank you.
Commissioner Skidmore.
Just one more thing on Mitch Holthus. He actually was the voice of the Pratt High School a long time ago, before he went to K-State.
Bring back.
Yeah, there you go, a little history behind that, so. In fact, I was one that encouraged him to show more enthusiasm if he did a broadcast, but anyway, he took that advice, I guess, but I can't take credit for that.
Sounds like you did.
Mayor Pro Tem Fleet.
I just want to say it was a fantastic fireworks show that was put on. So props to everyone involved, not just Ryland, and the whole fireworks crew who did that, but was a beautiful night to be out there. It was great and it was a good show. So thanks to all those people, and I think it was safe. There were some sirens during it, but they were not heading towards the fireworks. So I think that was a good sign.
And I have no comment. We'll move on to announcements. July 16th, we have a city commission meeting at 10 a.m. here at City Hall. July 23rd, we have a city commission meeting at 4 p.m. here at City Hall. July 30th, our meeting is tentative at 4 p.m. And August 6th, we have a city commission meeting at 7 p.m. at City Hall. And seeing no other business before us, I will adjourn.